Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching the John Woodard Show. Today we have the opportunity to interview Eric Earhart. He's running for Congress, and we're glad to have him. Let him tell you a little bit about his background and what he believes in, and then we'll hopefully give him a nice springboard for his campaign. Eric, how are you, buddy?
I am a blessed man, John. Thank you. Good to
Uh,
see you guys.
I saw you at the Dare County Convention, you and your wife and your children.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
so uh, I'm sure that's not all you do. What else do you do?
Well, that is probably the main thing I do. I think the number one thing in life is who you are to your family. They know when everybody else doesn't who you really are. So I have a beautiful wife, Shari, and six beautiful children, Mitch, Mandy, Michael, Missy, Miles, and Matthew, the M&M crew. And I'm the pastor of the Upper Room Assembly here in Gatesville. Been pastoring here 21 years. I'm the founding pastor, a community leader, have worked on many different projects here locally over the 2 decades. But mainly my life is committed to my family and my community and serving.
Alan, how long have you been working as a pastor in your church?
Well, I'm the founding pastor here. And before I was pastoring here, I had pastored at another location on staff. So I started this church with six other people. We launched on March 8th, 2002. And it's been a neat journey over these last 20 years.
I suspect it has. What is your background?
Grown up as a commercial fisherman family. On my dad's side, it was three generations of commercial watermen. And on my mom's side, four generations of commercial watermen. So until I joined the Army in 85, I was never more than a mile from the ocean. Grew up with the smell, the sounds, the sand. And so my whole life was committed to really an Eastern North Carolina kind of fisherman's life. And I ended up going off the Army in 1985, came back and got my first degree in associates in business management. Then I got a degree in automotive technologies there at James Front College and down in Duplin County. Ended up getting called to the ministry. So you know the story. It's kind of the you were a fisherman and now you're a fisher of men. And so from there, I went on to Bible college, had a degree from Regent University and Emmaus Bible College in Dubuque, Iowa. So my life has really just been committed to lifelong learning and serving.
Well, if you've to get a degree from Regent speaks very highly for you. They're a fine school with a great reputation. Started by Pat Robertson when nobody gave him credit for being able to build it into what it has become. But he showed him how that he was the man for the job.
Absolutely. You know, that's the book he wrote back in 1978 about the founding of that, called Shout It from the Rooftops, is such a great story of following the will of God, being willing to do something that no one thought was capable of doing. It's just crazy. And that university is one of the premier Christian universities in America, and just a beautiful facility with beautiful staff and students.
What were your degrees in?
Oh, mine was in organizational leadership and development. So I figured after all these years of pastoring and having degrees in theology, I really wanted to target on how to organize, develop, and run an organization. I thought that was really the next level of learning for me.
How long did you stay in the military?
5 years, 7 months.
And when you discharged, what was your rank?
E4. I was I was a knucklehead as a young man and had probably one of the most undistinguished military careers there is. I was an infantryman, a machine gunner, M60 machine gun, And yeah, I grew up using these and got in a lot of trouble as a young man, struggled with drugs and alcohol. And at 30 years old, 29, came to faith in Christ. And my whole life began to just transform and turn and go in another direction. In fact, you talk about 700 Club. Pat, they interviewed me a couple of years ago. And if you just Google my name, Eric Earhart with 700 Club, the video will come up, and they did a great job with it. Yeah.
Well, of course, it's now grown substantially and got a former congresswoman as the president of the university. Have you ever met her?
I have not. No, I have. I graduated several years ago, almost a decade ago. So it's been a while since I've been back to the campus.
Well, tell me about your congressional aspirations.
Sure.
You know, it's when you take on a big job like that, and I have no doubt that you have what it takes to do so. I'm just asking from a informational standpoint. What if you went to Congress? Everybody goes up there with a bucket full of piss and vinegar, but then they don't. They get caught up in the deep state and the quagmire and find it hard to get things done. How would you approach that task?
Yeah, great question, John. I got two things I want to say to that. Number one, I appreciate, I'm going to state this before I answer those. I appreciate your confidence after hearing my story that I could handle the job. But we should vet our candidates, and we need to look at them, and we need to really know, are we capable? As we've seen with some of our federal officials, my friend, it's shocking sometimes how ignorant, and I'm not making fun of anyone, just ignorant of issues, what's important, and at the federal level, what it takes to maintain the constitutional integrity of the freedom of the individual here in our nation. So for me, it was just that. After all these years of serving in my community, it was clear to me after the Trump, I will call it a revolution. Now, not really, and not centered on him. We'll come back to him if you want to as a president, because I think he served as one of the most, he actually governed as one of the most conservative presidents of my lifetime. Though we were all a little unsure in 2016 of how he would govern, he turned out to be one of the most conservative and practicality of a president I've ever seen in my lifetime, other than Reagan, who was my first president, my first election. So what we saw, though, in what I'll call the Trump revolution, and what I mean by that is that he shifted for the first time in decades, the Republican Party, back to the middle class, working class Americans, people that had really lost their voice over decades. Bush didn't defend us. Certainly Obama didn't defend us. And so that working class, faith-filled group that I had been pastoring for decades, they had really been left behind by government. And it was all big corporate and the affinity groups, the people that were shouting down everybody in the campuses. And so the media just really gave those the attention. And the working class American, the middle class American, what Karl Marx called the bourgeoisie, they had been left behind. And these are the people that I really mostly serve. Our church, we had food bank, and we have drug and alcohol rehabilitation programs. Now, we serve the least of those in our community. But you know, the central core of the body of Christ found in America here is really just a middle class, working class group. And so they have been left behind politically. And the funny thing is that our Constitution is really designed for that group. As John Adams stated, that our system of government is designed wholly and only for a moral people, a moral and religious people, and it's completely unfit for any other. So like so many people, I was swept up in this movement, and I'll say I'm part of the modern Black Robe Regiment. If you remember your history, King George famously said to his generals during the Revolution, he said, it's that damnable Black Robe Regiment that's stirring up all the colonists. And what it was preachers who were preaching freedom, liberty, justice, mercy, and those pastors were stirring people up to really stand up for freedom. And I just feel like I'm part of that movement. I am part of that tradition that the people of God have to be the ones to defend freedom. And if we don't defend freedom, we're the ones that fought slavery. I mean, we just celebrated 2 days ago the birth of the Republican Party in 1854 that was founded strictly to fight slavery. So really, it's time for the middle class, the working class Republicans, those conservatives that cut their grass on Saturday, go to church on Sunday, and work hard all week. It's time for them to have a voice again and send someone to Congress that believes in the sovereignty of the individual, that we answer to God and not to government. So it's really, I'm just part of that movement. I'm nothing special by myself, but this is a movement that's going on in America right now that is just sweeping people like me up in it. And I just want to be found faithful. And the same way I raised my hand in October 1985 to join the Army, I see this as a tour of duty. I want to go serve my country again, serve my people again as a tour of duty there in Congress.
Well, you know, the one of the biggest problems with politics at the state and federal level is it becomes so much horse trading. I'll support you if you'll support me. Well, you
Amen.
know, and neither one may have something to be voted on that is worthy of either one. But they, you know, they do it. I hear it all the time. Well, why didn't you do thus and so? Well, we've got a Democratic governor. We've got a Democratic president. They're going to veto it. So why bother? Well, then, but then where's your integrity to put it forward and force them to do it? Fight for it, whether it's right or wrong. Fight for it. If you believe in it, fight for it.
Well, John, and it sounds like you agree with me on this, and
I do.
And my wife and I really felt like we were alone, like so many people, until we got out and started finding freedom fighters. Until we got out and started moving in this primary. In fact, Shari and I have been, my wife and children and I have been to 12 of the 15 counties in the 3rd District. I've spoken 14 times in the last 2 weeks in 12 counties. And I got 2 more counties to go this week, Jones and Hyde, and that'll give me 14 of the 15. Only Sampson I haven't been to in the month of March. And so when we've gotten out here and talked with these Americans, talked with these down Easters and the coastal Carolinians, and what you find is people that believe just like us, and they're frustrated that they send people to Washington that they think they're going to go up there and fight for them, and they get up there and they sink in the swamp. Whether it's like just came out this week, a bunch of Congress people and Republicans that I liked just got caught buying stock in Raytheon and the maker of the Javelin missile and maker of the General Dynamics, the maker of the Hellfire missile. They got caught buying stock in that 3 days before voting to send $13 billion worth of them to Ukraine. That kind of corruption, we're all sick of it. We're just sick of it. And so we send these people up there and they sink in the swamp, and it's time to send someone up there that will fight for us.
That's a huge issue for me. I've been preaching this till the cows come home. It's pathetic. Senator Burr is no fan of mine or me of him, but he got dressed down, for the lack of a better term, and decided to retire from the Senate because of it. That very same issue, and yet it's routine business up there, and you got an open revolving door of political influence and graft and corruption in the medical establishment at NIH and CDC, leaving government service and going into private industry with a nice big cushy job, and the same in reverse. I mean, and money slushing around in like a bathtub full of water. It's pathetic.
Mhm.
So we need good conservatives to run for office, and people that will resist the swamp.
Well, the question is, are they up there to serve the people? Or are they up there to enrich themselves, right? And so there's a couple of things. Like one of the planks on my platform is we need to abolish the FISA court. That's got to go away. Why, as Americans, do we have a secret court? We have a federal judiciary. We have federal courts. We have federal prosecutors. There's no need for a secret court, particularly when it can be politicized and turned on our president. Another thing, look, why are there government service unions? That doesn't make any sense to me. When I joined the Army, there wasn't no union for me. I served at the pleasure of the United States government. So we call these jobs GS, government service employees, but they're not there to serve the people. They're not there to serve the government. They're there to serve themselves. And so a president should be able to come in and if we need to do away with the department, do away with it, right? So right now, the bureaucracy controls us, the FBI, the CIA, FISA, the Department of Education. So we send representative up there, they sink in the swamp, and the bureaucracy ends up running our lives. And if we don't get some legislators, if we don't send some populist, conservative, America first, meaning American first, conservatives up there, we're never going to turn this thing around. So I want to go up there and just be a thorn in the side of all of those people that are up there to go along, to get along. And I want to gather together with other like-minded conservatives there in the House and just push and push and push and fight for individual liberty and fight to reduce the power of the deep state and unravel this crazy bureaucracy that tries to control our lives.
One of the big problems that I've read about repeatedly is that people get in power and then they seek to serve themselves and forget to serve the people that sent them there.
Amen.
Who are you running against?
So right now there's 5 people in this race, and I get I'm sure you have been tracking this, and it's been crazy since October. But the map has changed 3 times since October. Finally settled on an interim map that was illegally drawn by the North Carolina Supreme Court. They had some masters, they called them, to come in and draw it. And so now it's called the third. It was the third, then it was the first, and now it's the third again. And there's 5 of us that have found ourselves in this race. There's the sitting incumbent, a gentleman named Greg Murphy. And then there's 4, myself and 3 other gentlemen that are challenging him for this seat.
Well, he's probably, I mean, I know him, but I don't know what his campaign coffers are like. But, guy, he hasn't been up there too long. But
he's a freshman.
He really has hurt himself with some of the votes that he's taken. First and foremost was that Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan went on TV and you need to vote for this man. He's going to join the Freedom Caucus and on and on and on. And it was no time at all before he dumped the Freedom Caucus. And then, other things that people are really, really upset with him about. Are those issues coming up in the campaign as you get into campaign debates?
Yeah, so, a couple of things, John, if you don't mind, I'll elaborate on that.
Yes.
One of the things is that it was that sentiment that got me in the race. The fact was that it was clear that the sitting representative didn't really represent people like me, my family, and my constituents, and the people that I support and the people I serve. So we weren't being represented. It was clear that this gentleman was not viewing the Constitution, liberty, freedom, and the Freedom Caucus, and was not viewing his job up there the way we wanted a representative to view it. So he wasn't doing his job. And then you could get into the issues of how he handled COVID and how he fell on the side of the pharma state versus the freedom. And then there's several issues he flip-flopped on. There was a lot of those things. But mainly, it was that everywhere I went, people, the grassroots people, were just asking me to run against him. And the final straw came when Mr. Murphy came here to my county, came to Gates County to do a fundraiser. And he did not notify the Republican Party that he was coming to town. His campaign did not reach out to them. And he went and held the fundraiser at a local Democrat bigwig here in our county, who was also the school board chairman. This school board chairman that had kept our schools closed was holding private closed-door school board meetings, was masking the children, had called the sheriff's deputies on many of the moms, including my wife. And the Republican Party had asked my wife to challenge this man. My wife has a master's in education. She spent 15 years as a school teacher. She homeschooled our 6 children. And so she was asked by the Republican Party to run against this, the current chairman, who had the whole community in an uproar, literally had us all in uproar, all the mothers and families, and had also basically had his McAuliffe moment where he had called one of the moms an idiot openly on Facebook, called her an idiot for wanting her children to not have to wear a mask while they're out playing football. Anyway, so the Honorable Greg Murphy sneaks into our community, has a $1,000 dinner plate fundraiser at the Democrat school board chairman's house, never notifies the Republican Party. And so therefore, he was having a fundraiser with my wife's opponent, the man that was holding our school children hostage. And so it was like that. And now I got to say, I had already been being asked by at least 4 different county party people at 4 different counties, would I run against him? And I was saying no, because he was our Republican representative. I didn't really agree with him, but I didn't want to primary a fellow R. But when he did that, I realized that everything I felt inside was true. This man doesn't represent me, and he doesn't represent the people around here, and he doesn't represent the freedoms we hold dear. And so it was time for me to stand up and say, you know what, I'll represent the 3rd District.
Well, you've got a big challenge on your hands. This issue of that we're dealing with now, this steady, if not accelerating push into socialism and Marxism, and the influence of the World Economic Forum in that process, it's really frightening. A lot of people are not prepared for it. Tell me what you, other than philosophically, can you tell me, about something that you think really goes to the crux of that issue and how you would approach it?
Well, of course, one of the big things our nation's facing right now everywhere, and if you go to Education First Alliance with Sloan Rackmith, she will give you all the information on this. Her organization has really been on this issue. So you have what's called CRT, critical race theory. But you understand that critical race theory just simply uses racism as an inroads for Marxism. So all of these, they use what's called intersectionality to try to unravel Western civilization. Now, I want to say this, and if you don't mind, I'm going to get a little geeky for a minute, because I love studying this stuff and have for decades. I love sociology. I love politics. I love economics. And so Adam Smith and Karl Marx saw the same problem. It's a problem called the Pareto principle from Wilfredo Pareto. And what it is called the 80-20 rule. And so what you have is that 20% of the wealth always is distributed among the 80%, and 80% of the wealth will always gather to the 20%. And this is true in every type of economic system, and it's true in every type of culture. Wilfredo Pareto discovered that. Now, Adam Smith sees it, Marx sees it over time. The question is how do we handle this, what's called the Pareto principle? How do we handle that? And so Adam Smith and the free markets and our Republican form of government, it handles it like this. It says that as long as there's equality and the opportunity to get wealth, to advance yourself, and so as long as there's mobility in life, then the people that are in that 80% at the bottom, so we'll call it, they don't get frustrated because you're not stuck there and you're able to be mobile and move through it. It's what we call the middle class. Now, Karl Marx, when he was examining this, he hated the middle class because the middle class, the bourgeoisie, we're the ones that uphold the traditions. And this is why the media hates us. You got to understand, the media loves the rich and the poor. They hate the middle class because we uphold the traditions of marriage. We uphold the traditions of religion. We uphold the traditions of society. You see, and so that bourgeoisie, those who uphold the traditions, they become the enemy, if you will, of the state and of Marxists. So CRT is just another methodology of Marxism trying to unravel what they call the bourgeoisie, or what we would call the middle class, that group that is able to have a little bit of economic stake, that we own our own homes, we invest in we have little investments, and we raise our children and we leave something for them behind. And so that group is really the enemy, the villain of the story, if you will, of the corporate elite and of the university socialists. And so they use multiple times. They'll use gender, they'll use race, they'll use whatever they can to unravel this fabric of society, the traditions of society, because it's the only way to control a society is to fully have the haves and have-nots, and only the haves and have-nots. If you have a middle class, you'll always have a group of people that will have economic mobility, they'll have stake in the game, and they'll be like Eric Earhart. They'll demand the right to go up and represent myself to the government. And that's the way our government's designed. You see, the problem could be the same. Everybody sees the problem. The question is, how do we answer it? And I believe the American experiment in self-government and individual liberty and constitutionalism and in the free markets, that is the right way to handle this issue that humans have faced for eons.
Well, that's very true, but it is each of these things individually that we've been talking about are enough to disqualify anybody from running for office. But people don't realize that this problem here and that problem there, that there's linkage. It's all one grand scheme to remove the governing bias, the system of government and economy of the one free nation that's left in the world, and once they take that away from us, then they'll own us. The problem with China is that years and years ago, and over a period of decades, the McKinsey company was enticing people to take their manufacturing out of the United States and do it in Germany, where they could get low cost and then sell the product back here to the United States, creating a tremendous trade imbalance. And who paid for that? The American taxpayer.
That's right.
So I'm kind of rambling on here because it's something that's so gets my goat terribly.
Yes.
What do you think? Do you have any comment to make about that?
I do. Well, so I would say that I fall in the camp of economic populism and free markets, very similar to Theodore Roosevelt's first administration. So he changed the world with trust busting and fighting what he considered to be global economic forces to basically be America first. And we need that again. So we have a neocon part of the Republican Party. I call them the war hawks and the chicken hawks. They are globalists. They're economic globalists, and they love to start wars all over the world. So that wing of the Republican Party tries to pretend like corporations like ExxonMobil and Facebook and Twitter, they pretend like these are American companies that should be treated like it's a free market. These are not American companies, and it's not a free market unless Americans can participate freely. So right now, what we have is these monopolies, and then we need some trust busting, exactly like Theodore Roosevelt did. Let me give you an example. So Facebook and Twitter that banned the president of the United States from communicating with 56 million people that were following him on these devices. These corporations, these global corporations, they need to be regulated the same way phone companies are. So let me give you an example. So John, if I call you right now on this phone and say, hey, John, I want you to join the Communist Party USA with me, and we're going to overthrow America and turn it communist. Well, guess what? Straight talk is not going to regulate what I say. As long as I don't communicate a threat to you, because we already have laws dealing with threats and things of that nature. As long as I don't communicate a threat to you, our speech on this device is not monitored. Our content is not monitored. I can text you whatever I want. So what we need is to do some trust busting and make Twitter and Facebook exactly like a phone company, where they're just a service provider. You pay $1.99 a week or $10 a month or whatever, and you get on there, and there's no fact checkers, there's no content moderation. They have nothing to do with that. All they do is provide you a service platform like a phone does. So that's what we need, because these forces are not American and they are not democratic. And they are right now monopolies that are controlling the political discourse in America. But we have a faction of the Republican Party that are not America first. They're not individual liberty people, and they are not really free markets. They are crony capitalists that want global markets. And so the reality is what you're saying is true. It gets me fired up like it's got you fired up. And we need a new economic American populism that restores free market capitalism to America.
That's where I was hoping that you were going to say crony capitalism, because that is, we've got so many elites in this country, and not all elected officials, but they are part of the globalist movement,
That's right.
and the crony capitalism is what drives that's 100% what they're behind, and has nothing to do with anything except that.
Yes.
What do you know about ESG?
It's going around right now, but I've not looked into it, so I can't really offer you any wise insights into it. Maybe you can tell me something about it.
It's being portrayed as as really as something that for the big banks and big corporations and everything, but I believe that it's really far worse than that. And we'll soon find out what that's about. But
well, you're going to make me look into it, so I'm going to go after our interview today. I'm going to follow up with that and check it out.
There were 84 banks and insurance and more than that in insurance companies that were at a conference in Glasgow, Scotland, and working on how they were going to work toward trying to figure out how, giving people, a controlling, the how you build your house and whether you use solar or not, and giving you a score, which depending upon the score will have a derivative benefit of what kind of premium you pay on your home insurance and a lot of
Mm,
other factors like that.
gotcha.
So there's what we think we know about what's coming is only a fraction of the real
The
challenge
Great
ahead.
Reset. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
if
the
we don't
Great
get some
Reset is
economic
already
populism,
upon
if we
us.
don't get representatives that are America first, and that means Americans first. This nation isn't any good if we don't defend the people of this nation. I'm not a good father and a good husband if I don't defend my family, the people in my home. And right now we have representatives that want to rule us and not represent us, and I'm sick of it.
But it's very and you're absolutely right about that. And well, we could go on indefinitely because I know that that there's a lot of problems out there, and but I think that everybody that's watching that will watch this video will I think grasp that you're uh, a conservative, not just a Republican, and that if they want good, solid, conservative uh, people in Congress, that they ought to give you a good, fair examination.
Thank you. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of end on a high note, if we
Yes, sir,
can.
please,
I'm an
absolutely.
eternal optimist. I mean, my life belongs to Christ. This is the order. It's Christ, and then my wife, and then my children, and then my community, my nation. So I have eternal optimism. And this is what I know about human freedom, that if you give humans freedom, if you deregulate and you give them the opportunity to think, to use their own capital between their ears and with their hands, that they will simply dream dreams and they will find better ways to take care of their family and do better for their lives. So the freedom is always the answer. And pushing back tyranny. George Washington warned us against it. Adams, Jefferson, name them. The men who founded this government warned us about this government. And so this is the reality. If we can simply keep the fight for freedom, your children and grandchildren, my children and grandchildren, they will dream dreams and do great things if we would just hold back the forces and give them the opportunity. So I'm optimistic that if we can maintain the beautiful freedoms that God has given and trusted us with here in America, this next generation is going to do some great things, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, that's those are great sentiments, and we all have to work to ensure that those sentiments are fulfilled. Opportunity is based upon the freedom to make the choices that ultimately lead to a successful uh, individual effort, family effort, community, and then nation. And we don't write everything that we have all worked for, everything that we've grown up with, everything that our parents and grandparents grew
Yes.
up with, all the technological changes that have benefited society over the decades are now, you know, the next great revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, talks about uh, converting mankind to a combination of machine and man. And I was surprised, utterly surprised, to find that a young man that I know in central North Carolina uh, told me when I was mentioning that to him, he said, "Oh yeah, there's people in my age bracket who truly believe that that's what is that's
Mm.
going to be a reality And to hear him say that was rather frightening. I don't think I want I won't be around, but I don't want, children of the future to grow up, being half human, half machine. I can't, I can't, can't fathom that. Transhumanism, they call it.
Lord help us.
Thank you very much, my friend. I could talk to you all day. You're a very interesting man to talk to. We'll have you on again and give you a chance to speak to the audience again, and we'll do that, in the coming months.
Well, thank you so much. All right, John, God bless you and God bless America.
Amen to that, brother. You do the same. Have a great day.
You too.